Welcome to Senior Stay or Go TV, a show to educate, entertain, and advocate on behalf of our aging adults. We are here to provide you the best information for your quality of life.
Welcome. Our guest today is Brad Messmer. He's a PhD and CEO of Abrios Biosciences. Thank you so much for being with us again today, Brad. We really appreciate you coming back.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, thanks for coming back. It's been about a year and 3 or 4 months. So take us on a journey, what's been going on the last 15 months or so, and tell us about the company and what you really set out to accomplish.
Yeah, so it's been a very exciting 15 months for us. We, of course, are a startup company, which means we're always looking for money, and we recently closed a funding round with some more private individual investors, so we're very excited to have the funding we need to continue on.
Awesome.
If you recall, our company is focused around precision medicine, and in particular, dose monitoring for very expensive drugs that treat cancer, autoimmunity, and other serious conditions.
So what 15 months, when last time we saw you, what's the major, has it been like a major transition, breakthrough, or what's been happened?
Yeah, so the science is progressing, which is good, but what's really been exciting for us is our business development activities, in particular talking to pharmaceutical companies. We've seen a big shift in enthusiasm for personalized medicine and precision medicine approaches such as ours.
Well, that's good news.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So why is dosing so important? And are you going to need to do clinical trials? And if you do, what kind of subjects do you need for those trials? How many sites do you plan on having across the country so people can kind of be aware of where you're going to be?
Yeah, so the reason that dosing is important, particularly with these drugs, so we focus on the class of drugs called biologics, and these are very expensive drugs. A single dose can cost thousands of dollars, and the annual cost of therapy for patients can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's a strong economic reason to try to get the dose right and not take more of these drugs than you need. Some of them have side effects as well, so minimizing side effects is always important. And then the flip side is that some patients actually, their bodies just get rid of these drugs very quickly and they don't work. And so to be on a very expensive drug that's not working is not in anyone's interest. So that's really the core basis for what we're doing. We want to help the patients get the most benefit from these powerful but expensive drugs. And to go to your question of clinical trials, we're now actually starting to set up plans for our first clinical studies for one of the drugs that we're looking at. In general, we can actually offer laboratory tests without clinical trials, without FDA approval, but we ultimately want to have FDA approved tests.
So I'm going to go a little political, given the controversy with the Food and Drug Administration, given the new administration, or maybe not so new anymore. Where is that, do you see a loosening up of that? Do you see a more advantageous situation, or where do you see that going?
That's a loaded question. So far actually things have not changed very much as far as we can tell. We actually just had a phone call with FDA a couple weeks ago, and it sort of went by the numbers. The agency is very concerned about patient safety and are very careful not to take chances, which can be frustrating at some level because those of us that want to do things right sometimes face a higher barrier than people that can cut some corners and go around. There are some loopholes that one can exploit, but ultimately we think that particularly if we're going to work with pharmaceutical companies who want things to be done right, we'll work with the agency the way that we're supposed to the best of our abilities.
There's a number of pharmaceutical companies in Europe. Are you able to do any research or work with them and maybe move things along a little quicker since they don't have as many FDA regulations as we do?
So that's a great question. Actually, we are working with many of the multinational pharmas. We actually are going to be doing a little clinical study in France. We actually have a subsidiary located in Marseille. So that we have.
Can we we'd like to go.
Yeah.
Can we go check that one out?
There are worse places to visit. And in fact, the weather's very similar to San Diego.
Yeah.
So it's easy on us, other than the time difference. But no, generally the Europeans, the big companies conform to European and FDA regulations across the board. So there's not too much of a difference in that sense, although for the economic rationale behind these drugs, the Europeans are definitely generally single-payer markets with national health systems who have to make these hard decisions about what they can afford to provide to their population. And so that's where, again, getting the dosing right and limiting the excessive use of drugs can really bring drugs to those patients that otherwise their health systems wouldn't pay for.
Which is why they might get on board maybe a little quicker.
Yeah, they certainly are driving the desire to have more cost-effective therapies. You know, the UK has some very innovative programs where they essentially ask the drug manufacturers to take on some of the risk even after the drug's in the marketplace to show that, hey, it has to really work as well as it did during the clinical trials, or else you're going to have to pay us back for the drug. So I think they're more pioneers in these kind of health economic models than we are.
So does your is it a product that somebody would digest, or is it a product that somebody, how would it work?
So it's a blood test, and
Okay.
it can work in it can take a number of forms. It could be a laboratory test where blood would be drawn and then sent to a lab, you know, like is done for a lot of other things, but we're also developing point of care solutions so that a finger stick of blood right there in the physician's office could give you the measure of how much drug is there, so that
Just
there
like a
wouldn't.
blood sugar test.
Yeah, the glucose monitoring for diabetes is really the model that we ultimately think is the way to go.
Could somebody do this at home? I mean, obviously not always the doctor's office, so somebody could do this at home.
Yeah, that's our ultimate goal. Some of these drugs are actually self-injected by patients at home, and so obviously it'd be nice if the test that guides the dosing could be done. We have a prototype device that has Bluetooth enabled. It can talk to the cloud, so the physician could see the information, but the test could be done at home.
Wow.
So being, you know, the whole thing is unbelievably fantastic. What would be any objection? Who would object to something like this?
Well, again, the drug companies have an interest in selling more drug. Now, they are, as I said, they're very concerned about patient safety, and we believe, and I think we're seeing this now, that better drugs are better drugs for everyone, and they will sell more. And these markets are getting competitive, so there's a greater desire to differentiate you know, one drug from another. But there is a history, I think, of trying to make things simple. So traditionally, they like simple dosing. One dose fits all. I mean, take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning, not 2.5 for you and 1.5 for you. But I think that overall now there's a recognition that we can and we should be doing personalized medicine.
Especially with the more costly medications, and you know, if somebody has an autoimmune disease, it's not something that's going to go away in 2 weeks. So you need to get it right over time, or the side effects could be devastating.
Yeah, well, we always say when your therapy costs as much as a Ferrari, it really should have a speedometer.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good
That's
one.
a good one.
We'll have to, I don't know, somehow we'll have to use that. So when will you think the first tests, you're saying the first tests are available, or when will they be available?
So
Clinically.
Clinic.
Yeah, so we do have a laboratory test that's ready to launch. We're looking for a laboratory partner with whom we can launch that test, and that would be for the drug Tisabri, which is used in multiple sclerosis. Our first FDA products, we've just initiated that process, so we're probably about 2 years away from the point of care solutions.
And is that's not 510K then? That's
No, it is. It's a 510K. Yeah,
Okay.
Class 2.
Okay.
Okay, what does that mean? She's pretty smart at all this stuff.
It means that there's something similar that they can relate it to that's already on the market versus starting from scratch.
Yeah, in our case, it's actually a de novo 510K because
Okay.
we don't have that precise predicate.
Okay.
But it does mean that we don't, in theory, don't have to show full clinical utility. We only have to show clinical validity, which is
Okay.
again, this is FDA speak. Basically it says that we're measuring what we're measuring correctly. What you do with that information still ultimately is up to the physician.
So if somebody in the viewing audience has MS, should they contact you?
They're certainly welcome to, and particularly if they're on Tisabri, you know, we can share some information about dosing. And I think in general, any patient on these drugs should ask their doctor, how do you know that I'm getting the right amount? And in some cases, they may not get a good answer back, but at least creating that awareness among their physicians that they're worried
aware.
about it. Particularly in the personalized medicine space, patients can really drive a lot of the future of how care is going to be delivered.
I mean, are the doctors more, do you sense the doctors are more concerned about this? Is this something the doctors could drive to?
It varies by specialty. I think certainly in neurology for multiple sclerosis, the physicians are very aware of the risks of these drugs and they really want to get it right. So we've actually had them come to us and say, we want this now. You know, in other diseases, particularly in cancer, it depends a little bit on the drugs. Some of them really don't have a history of worrying about precise levels. Sometimes they have bigger problems that they're dealing with. So it's interesting, in fact, how it varies across the different specialties.
Could it even be used for pain management?
Right now, no.
Okay.
The drugs that we measure are not the ones that are used in pain management, but obviously that's an area where people are very concerned about dosing and overdosing, and so we are looking at that.
Got it.
Well, I'll give you a last word. What can we do to support you? I mean, it's just a fabulous product. It just seems like a fabulous thing.
Well, in the short term, just watch our growth and root for us. As I said, the FDA process is time consuming, and there's not much you can do to shorten that time. But we're always interested in patient stories. Those are very powerful. They help us raise money, but they also help us explain really the ultimate value of these types of tests. So
Patient stories being where they were not monitored properly.
Or even if they're just on these drugs and they're worried. The other thing that's going to happen soon is the generic versions of some of these drugs are starting to come out, and so there's a lot of concern. Are they really going to perform the same? And so we're seeing a lot of interest there. So I think any patient who's worried about their drug of this class, we'd be happy to hear from them.
Patty,
Awesome.
you know all about what do you?
I think it's awesome because, I mean, even when when pharma does a clinical trial, they have to set parameters for their subjects. And not everybody is within that parameter. Not everybody is a male or a female between 20 and 35 and, whose metabolism is exactly the same, whose diet is the same, whose exercise program is the same, and yet, like you said, take 2 of these and call me in the morning, and it just doesn't work that way for everybody.
Yeah, one of the dirty secrets of clinical trials is that patients in those trials are kind of the marathon runners of patients. As you said, it's not reflective of the general population, and certainly of older populations that may not be eligible for the criteria of the trial.
And mostly, there's very few, in the past, very few females as part of those trials.
Yeah, there's a lot of awareness of that now, so I think it's improving, but certainly historically it's been a big problem.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Brad, we wish you much luck. And thank
you.
you for returning and giving us an update. We really wish you much success. It's going to be done. I'm guaranteeing. I'm guaranteeing it here on Today. So stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.
Welcome to Senior Stay or Go TV. Today we have Mary Ball, who is the president and CEO of Alzheimer's San Diego. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Patty.
Mary, thank you for being here today. And before we get started, I must have a shout out to Vicki Mushak for really being the one who brought us together. And I know you're good friends with her. So, Vicki, if you're watching, thank you very much.
Yeah, Vicki's great. Thanks, Vicki.
So tell us about Alzheimer's San Diego. And again, in terms of, we hear the word Alzheimer's, but that is really a subset of dementia. And tell us about your organization.
Well, Alzheimer's San Diego is a local independent organization to provide information, support, respite to families who are caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease. And, we read every day in the paper that Alzheimer's is just a skyrocketing epidemic. Just here in San Diego County, we've got over 65,000 people that are suffering from the disease today, and the numbers are just growing. So we're that local organization who provides free services to help families care for the person with memory loss.
So tell us some of the things that Alzheimer's San Diego does for the community, because there's a lot of them.
We offer a wide variety of programs and services. And the first thing that we've got a whole team of master's level social workers who are really experts in Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. And they are available to talk with people on the phone, to get them information, to provide them support, to answer questions. So that's the first service we provide. And we get over 1,000 calls a month from people who just need help, support, and information, because it is such a difficult job caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease. And for the most part, people are cared for at home by family members for the 8 to 10 years that people live with the disease. We also have classes and workshops. Last year we offered close to 300 classes and workshops. They are all free, and they range in topics from what does a diagnosis of Alzheimer's mean, to legal and financial planning, to what's the latest in Alzheimer's research. And so that's something that We touch thousands and thousands of people, providing them information and education on how to care for their loved one. We also have different social programs. We've got painting classes, music classes, exercise classes, and those are available free to people with Alzheimer's disease and their caregivers. And then, of course, we have a free respite program because there's so many caregivers out there that they never get a break. And so we've got a team of volunteers, and we can provide 4 hours a week of respite.
Out to the home?
Out to the home, yes.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's just invaluable to caregivers who are taking care of their person 24 hours a day.
Well, and then if they have a loved one and they bring them to the painting class or the dance class or the exercise class, it's socialization, and it also provides a little bit of respite at that time as well. 'Cause
It does.
It is very difficult, because what I found, having had my own personal experience, is it's not the kind of thing you can plan, because you're really not sure what's coming next, because every individual has their journey in a very different way. So you can become educated, but you're not really sure what it is you're going to need.
Right, because the disease is changing all the time. And many people think that it's just a little memory loss. But as you unfortunately know, Alzheimer's starts out as memory loss, and then as the disease progresses through the brain, people lose the ability oftentimes to speak, to eat, to walk, lose the ability to control their emotions. And so it is so challenging for caregivers, and we want to be there for them every step of the way, whether it's with programs or support from our social workers, because it's a difficult job.
So if somebody's kind of wondering about their loved one, is that something that you could help them with? Alzheimer's San Diego could help them get over that hurdle of denial, or what's the next step?
Sure, we get a lot of calls from people who are worried about themselves, or they're worried about a loved one or a family member. And we can certainly help them identify what's normal memory loss and what are the things that you should be worried about. We also do free memory screenings, and we've got a free memory screening coming up in August that's open to the public, where we've got a team of clinicians from Sharp Healthcare and our master's level social workers, and we can run people through some testing to identify whether there's concerns and whether they should go see a physician for an evaluation. So if people go to our website at alzsd.org, you can get information on our free memory screenings.
You guys have an amazing organization. We took a tour of it about a month or so ago, and really quite impressive for a relatively small staff doing an amazing amount of work. And I congratulate you on that and what you're doing here in San Diego, because it is an epidemic, and there's not a day that goes by there's not something in the newspaper. I mean, I was just watching yesterday the Glenn
Oh,
Campbell situation and things like that. So I congratulate you on everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Have you seen? I mean, you've been involved with this, quite a few years. And have you seen a change in the way people view Alzheimer's and dementia? And do they understand it a little bit more, or is there still a lot of education that needs to be done?
Well, I think that there's still a lot of education that needs to be done. Unfortunately, there's still some stigma around Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, and we're working every day to make sure that people understand what this disease is. Similar how there was stigma around cancer 30, 40 years ago. And just through public education and shows like this, we can educate the community that this is a progressive neurological disease. The brain is physically dying over time, and that's what drives the behaviors and the memory loss. And unfortunately, at this point in time, there's no treatment or a cure. So the best that we can offer is good care and support for families as they take care of their loved one.
So based on that, do you see your typical customer or client who comes in? Is it someone who is beginning to lose cognitive abilities and is concerned, or do you see more crisis where the family kind of didn't really think it was happening or was in denial, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we can't deny it any longer?
Well, it's hard to identify our typical customer. We see the full range, both people who are experiencing memory loss and want to go to a physician, and we talk to people who have recently gotten a diagnosis, because we do have programs for people who are in the early stages of the disease. We are one of the only places in the United States that offers a cognitive stimulation therapy, and it's really for people who are in those very early stages of memory loss. How do we slow the decline? How do we keep their brain engaged and active? Then, of course, we have families who may be in denial about the condition of their loved one and get in a crisis situation. And, of course, we jump right in to help them whatever way we can. Our hope is that people call us and get educated early, because this is a disease. It's a fatal disease. It's going to continue to progress. And it's so much easier if you know what's coming next when you're caring for somebody, because it can present some very challenging circumstances, like wandering.
Yeah.
We've seen, terrible situations when people have wandered with the disease and not been found. So we deal with all kinds of situations. Our hope is, if families have any questions, concerns, call us early. We're happy to help.
Are there any charges for the programs? And
all of our programs are free, and we are able to do that by the support of the local community. So we raise every dollar to provide our programs and services, to pay our team of social workers, and the community in San Diego. Our donors have been very generous, and but the need is growing out there, so we continue to need to raise money. And with Alzheimer's San Diego, 100% of the funds raised here in San Diego stay here in San Diego to support our local programs and services. There's national organizations out there that raise money in San Diego, but that money doesn't necessarily stay here to support local families.
so what goes on in San Diego stays in San Diego.
With Alzheimer's San Diego, it certainly does.
Well, Patty and I are part of a team called Lead for the Cure. It's going to be a team, and I know we're early in the game in terms of fundraising, but we hope people will get on the website and go to Lead for the Cure team and put in a donation.
Well, and that's for our walk
October
that's coming up
21st
in October.
in Balboa Park. Yep.
And that's our largest fundraiser, our Walk for Alls. In October, we've got 2 walks, one in Oceanside and one in Balboa Park. So
Right.
thank you for your support.
We're very excited about it.
And the walk is, again, another way that we can provide our services free of charge and actually support local research as well.
Say if somebody wants to volunteer, is that something they can call and find out more information about? Are you accept
At
volunteerism?
Alzheimer's San Diego, we have hundreds of volunteers, and we put them to work, and we're so grateful for what they do. So if someone is interested in volunteering, go to our website, call our office, and we'd love to talk with them.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I know. We're very excited about what you're doing, because again, Patty, her mom suffered 12 years with the disease, and my Linda, her mom, passed away this year with Alzheimer's.
Sorry.
And what it does to a family is just, it's the worst. It's just because you really, like Patty says, you lose a parent twice, one to Alzheimer's and one to passing.
It's just...
And it's really an unbelievable process.
The emotional toll, the economic toll on families, it's devastating. And, at some point in time, we're all going to be touched because the numbers are just too big. We're going to know someone, we're going to have a family member.
Or friends, it's like there's almost a day that doesn't go by that someone doesn't mention something.
Yeah, there's a lot of people impacted, and there's so many people that don't realize that Alzheimer's San Diego is out there. So we always ask for people to spread the word, because people do need help and support, and we want to make sure they know where to go.
Well, we thank you for being here today, Mary. We want to get the word out. We want everybody to get on their website and make a pledge, volunteer, make a phone call.
Come walk with us.
Come walk with us. Come talk to us. So we thank you for being here today, and stay tuned for more Senior Stay or Go TV.